Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Preparedness Podcast, where hopefully we're preparing you to live a more stress-free life by being prepped for any kind of emergencies or, well, emergencies can be different things from a flat tire to a weather catastrophe. So hopefully we're getting you prepped for those. I'm Zan. I'm back again. Brent's with us today again. Brent, what's going on?
Not much, man. What about you?
Not much. Just trying to get notes together for the show. And speaking of that, today, which we should have done this last time, we should have done this before our last episode, which was food storage. Today we're going to talk about water and water storage. And we should have started this off as our first show because it's really more important than food. It's your top priority. We got anything just generalized to start off with on water?
Just like you said, it is the big thing. You can survive for I say a long time. You can survive for a week or more without food, but more than 3 or 4 days and you're hurting. So water's the big biggie.
Yeah, I think I read, as awkward as this is as a preparedness website, it's one of these government, .gov websites that recommends, to be comfortable at around a 1 gallon of water per day to consume.
Yeah, they recommend a minimum of 1 gallon per person per day in an emergency situation. And keep in mind, they recommend that, but that is literally the bottom to keep your body functioning. That's not, if you've got to walk a long distance and stuff, it's hot, you're sweating. That's not to do anything but basically just keep your body functioning. That's not to even keep it functioning well.
And that's not even counting, extra. That's the water that you should consume to keep your body going. That's not talking about, if you need to wash some dishes, if you need to put some water in your radiator, whatever you need extra water for. That's not taking any of that into consideration. So when you stop and think about that, that's a lot of water. And generally, the only way you're going to have that is if you keep it stored, and that can be, I've been in situations where even a single bottle of water left in my car for months unopened has bailed me out, to having several gallons just thrown in a back room or something when there's been an ice storm or when your pipes froze up or the water just shut off or, there's been a contamination locally, be it minor or major. So we'll just start getting into some storage ideas right off the bat. And again, we're going to try to keep this stuff as cheap and simple as possible because that's the way we like to roll, and that's the way, especially if you're new, this is the way you should be starting out. So easiest thing I can think of right off the bat is bottled water. These things are so easy to store. I carry a bottle of water with me everywhere. I drink a lot of water anyway, but I always have a bottle on me. I've got a few in my car. And then I've got not a lot because there's pros and cons to these, and we'll get into that. But you can buy these cases of bottled water relatively cheap at dollar store, Walmart, Costco, any of those kind of places. They're really, really easy to store. They're essentially going to last you forever. If you were worried about contamination, you could take care of that, which we'll get into that again later. But easy, cheap, easy to store. And the only drawback to them really is sometimes they can leak. The plastic, is very flimsy. So I wouldn't suggest getting thousands of these bottles because it's just not cost effective when you start looking at some other methods. But just as a quick, easy step, bottled water. So what do you have on that?
I like bottled water. I always keep some around, a couple cases, like the 24 case at Walmart. Or something. I mean, a lot of times you can buy that for, what is it, like $3 or $4 maybe for like 24, the little.
Yeah, it's about $4, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like 16 ounces or something like that.
Usually they're 16 ounce, yeah.
Yeah, those are great. Like you said, it's not cost effective in the long run, but, storms coming in, you haven't kept up like you should. You can buy a couple of those, and it works out pretty well for you. The nice thing about those, if you get the ones in the clear plastic bottles, is you can use them for another method I know we're going to talk about later, which is the SODIS method. I don't want to get ahead of anything, but it's a nice way to recycle material and stuff without having to throw it away.
Yeah, you're getting the water and another tool to use more water in the same package.
Right.
All right, so next we'll move on to the gallon jugs, and again, you can buy these at Walmart or, they're a little bit harder to find at, a convenience store or something, but they're pretty readily available, very cheap, like anywhere between 50 cents and $1. and you get more for your money as far as the storage goes. But they do take up all. They're harder to store. You know, you can't really stack them. You got to have some kind of shelving, and the plastic is. I think the plastic's a little bit tougher, you know, than the bottled water. So you're going to be able to reuse that a lot more. You got anything to add on the gallons?
I kind of disagree with you a little bit on that. In my personal experience, getting like, what is it, like Great Value that Walmart sells or whatever.
Yeah, that's the cheap one.
I've had, and maybe it's just the cheap one. You know, that's a good possibility. I usually, if I buy the gallon jugs, I keep them in the fridge. That way I don't have to worry about, you know, them getting contaminated or anything. I just leave them in the fridge. It's nice. It's cool. It's cold. It's dark. But I've had those actually leak after a while.
Really?
And I haven't had that experience with the bottled water. Now, like I said, that could be just because, you know, I usually buy the cheap stuff whenever I go do that. I would say, personally for me, I would rather spend a little bit extra money and actually get, like, the water cooler jug, like the big, thick, heavy blue plastic one. That's just what I would do for my money. It's quite a bit more expensive. I don't remember what it's going for now. I want to say, what is it, like $10 or $11, I think?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Now that, I mean, you're getting, you know, a pretty thick jug there and everything. I mean, they're made to be used and reused and all that. But then again, you've got, those suckers are heavy and they are a pain to try to store. So, you know, that's always something to keep in mind too.
And that's kind of cool that we had somewhat of a disagreement on this, but, you know, that's why we do the show, for open discussion on these things so everybody can learn. And I haven't had any of those leak, but I'll tell you what I do with mine. You said you put yours in the refrigerator. I put mine in the freezer. So not only are you getting the water storage, but again, if the power goes out or something, I've got a giant block of ice to keep whatever's in the freezer cold, and then I can drink it when it melts.
Yeah, well, see, that's actually what I do with the bottles that with the like the 2-liter bottles that I save and I take through the SODIS method.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we can get into this later a little bit more detail, but I always like to freeze those for, like you said, I mean, you know, power goes out, now I've got ice.
And actually, that's what I was going to get into next is, you know, tap water. It's there's kind of two things on this. You're paying for it anyway, so you might as well take advantage of it, and it's costing you less than, you know, a couple of those packs of water, really. I mean, when you break it down. And a lot of people I know personally do not drink tap water, but you need to be taking advantage of the water that's there, because one of these days it might not be there. And I really don't. I'm going to be hard pressed to believe that these people that go, my tap water is nasty. I only drink filtered, blah blah blah. You know, I really don't think they're going to be saying. Then again, you know, I've been surprised before, but in a true emergency, I think they're going to drink about whatever kind of water they can have that's even somewhat clean. And there's several different ways to take advantage of the tap water. You know, just refilling any kind of container that you have and putting it in your refrigerator. Something as simple as that, and then, you know, dumping it out once a month, once every couple of weeks, something like that, and refilling it. What I like to do is we've talked about it before, and you were somewhat jumping ahead with pop bottles, but I don't usually drink too much soda, but I've got plenty of people I know that do, and they will usually give me their bottles, and I don't do the method you do, but I fill them up and then I store them in an outbuilding, because I've got, you know, I have the jugs we talked about in the freezer, and I've got the bottles in pantries and a couple different places in the house and the car. So the bottles take up a lot more room, and I've stacked some of them outside in the building like firewood, and then I've stood them up. They store really easily like that, or if you have milk crates. And that plastic is extremely tough, you know, tougher than the bottles of water or the jugs. And that's the cheapest way to do it. And honestly, I don't plan on rotating any of that, because that will be what I will use to boil or purify, again, for jumping ahead again.
Yep.
But, you know, that's free water that's just sitting out there, and it's costing me next to nothing for the containers, for the room, and for the water, either way. So what do you have to say on the 2-liter bottles?
I love the 2-liter bottles. I personally, I don't drink a lot of soda anymore. I used to a lot, which was why I got fat and overweight and all that. But that's a different story for a different show.
We need to do a whole show on that.
But anyway, I I love them. Like you said, that plastic is absolutely tough. It's great. It can be a kind of a challenge to store, but like you said, you stack it like firewood and stuff. It's actually not too bad, or milk crates, something like that. Uh, sorry, excuse me. But you were talking about like flavor of water. People complaining, oh, I don't drink tap water. I only want the filtered water from Mount Vesuji or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you ever watched the old Penn and Teller show, the BS.
I used to watch it a lot, but I haven't lately.
There's an episode, and you can find it on YouTube. And they go into like this restaurant, and they fill up all these different water bottles with water from the garden hose out back. And they put different labels on the bottles and everything and take them out like, there are all these different ones. And people are talking about how, oh, this one's so much better than that one. I can really taste, how much they got it filtered and stuff like that. And all of it was just the water from the hose.
Yeah, that somehow doesn't surprise. It doesn't surprise me at all. I've seen, other kind of taste test type things done that way, and it just, or like common questions. I know we're getting off subject, but I was listening to a local radio station, and they asked somebody about who was a count that ruled over a United States state at one point, and her answer was Denmark. Yeah, so that's just the type of people that are. So of course they're gonna think that the water out of a hose tastes just like something. It's
Yep.
like a placebo type thing.
Yep.
If they're told and
Yep.
said that this is this, then they're gonna believe it no matter what. So.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mean, I find, now that I've said all this stuff, I have a well out where I live, which is part of the reason why water storage is very important. I lose power, I lose water. So, I have to keep some up, and the 2-liter bottles are absolutely fantastic. I like to rinse them out real good. I used to, wash them out, actually take soap and all that, but I don't know. That's something that I ended up having a couple bad experiences with, just taste-wise. I mean, it never made me sick or anything, but it was like I couldn't get all the soap taste out.
I usually wash mine, but now that you say that may save me some time.
I don't know that it's any better. If somebody listening can be like, no, you're an idiot, you have to wash it, and that's fine. Please call me on it if it's, something important. But I haven't noticed any big problems other than just, rinsing it out. May take a little bit of soap water, let it soak a little bit, and then rinse it out. I don't know. I just know I had some that kind of tasted like, dish soap.
Well, and we can move into that in a minute as far as just because we're storing all this water, I mean, yeah, the majority of it's going to be to drink, but we'll get into some other functions that require water that maybe the taste doesn't matter. So, last thing on the storage that I've got, and then I'll let you if you got anything else on it, is there's all different kinds of things you can do and buy to kind of uncharacteristic storage. I don't know the name of them technically, and I know you'll know what I'm talking about, Brent, but they sell them. If a storm's coming, if the power's got potential to go out, you just hook them to your bathtub.
Oh yeah, crap, I can't remember the name of them though.
But I mean,
but they're bladders, all they are.
Yeah, they'll fill up your bathtub with water in this bladder type thing, and they're really not that expensive. But that's if you're really not going to store any water, but you for whatever reason, but that's something you could look at. They make the collapsible like 3, 4, 5 gallon kind of what I'm talking about.
Are you talking like the little aqua blocks type thing?
Kind of, yeah. That's just something else you could use, and then those are total last minute things, and then you can start setting stuff outside for rainwater. That's not costing you anything.
Nope.
I guess it's illegal in certain states, which is absolutely ridiculous. Or
it is.
Or towns even. You'd have to. I would just do it regardless. I don't. Whatever. I would do it. And there's all different ways to do. I mean, you could do something as simple as just sticking a bucket.
Yep.
Sticking a bucket out where rain can get in it, or you can go and buy one of the high-end, big storage containers that's got the little vent thing on the top to keep leaves and sticks out and whatever. So those are just some extra odds and ends you can use for water storage that is kind of outside the box. Do you have any kind of odd ways to store?
Not really. I mean, you can go. I know, like the Habitat for Humanity restores sometimes sell those like the big blue barrels they're like food safe. A lot of times they sell those actually fairly cheap. I know a couple years ago I bought one. I think it cost me like $10. And if you go buy one, like online and stuff, I think some of them are very, very high. So I mean, that's something you may check out. And if you've got gutters, like you said, if it's illegal in your state slash town, community, village, whatever it is you live in, I don't know what to tell you. We do not encourage the breaking of laws. However, if you were to do it, I don't see a problem with it personally. I think the Supreme Court would have I think it would be fun to see them actually try to fully prosecute somebody for collecting rainwater. Maybe they have, and I haven't seen the case.
Yeah,
but
they have. There's been a couple times where a couple people spent some jail time, and the funny thing about it is they were older people. I mean, it's been like a year or two ago that I read about it, but it was a couple of older people, and I want to say it was in Washington somewhere.
Probably. I think Oregon, I know, is one state that it's all about the watershed and this and that. I know Missouri was trying to do some stuff here not long ago. Because what is it, like the Elephant River or White River or something, watershed?
That's a whole topic for another show. They were just basically wanting to control all the property the water was on.
Yeah, and
they were putting that front on for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get, conspiracy theory and stuff like that, but I mean, really, how dangerous are a couple old people sitting there gathering rainwater?
No kidding, yeah.
I mean, really. But, anywho, not to, again.
We've opened Pandora's box to like 5 other show topics.
Oh, I know. Some, like if you have gutters, they make those little flexible downspouts. Like you had alluded to, I think even this show, and I know a couple other ones too. Run those into like trash barrels.
Yep.
And I mean, you don't have to go get the big fancy food safe, this and that. You're going to need water to flush your toilet. You're going to need water, for 100 other things that's not going in your body. So, that stuff's great. And you can always boil that water. I mean, there's ways to purify it, which I think we're going to talk about later too in this show.
We'll just go ahead and jump into that. I mean, this just, stop and think about all the things you need water for. If you want to live a comfortable life in your house, let's say nothing's wrong with the house. It's just let's say there's something wrong with the water supply. So the power's working, everything's working, but you just don't have water. Well, I guess you'd still be able to get away with flushing the toilet, but you might not want to shower with the water, depending on, that's what this water storage can be for. Obviously to drink, to cook, that you can kind of do the math and figure some of your allowed water that you should have in your food that you're going to be cooking. So, especially if you do the freeze-dried stuff where it requires water.
Right.
What else can you, brushing your teeth? That's something that's pretty important. You're gonna
and don't forget, your 4-legged friends.
Yeah.
Dogs, cats, pets, they got to have water too.
Any kind of pets, even if you got like lizards or something.
Yeah, for real. I mean, they got to have water. So don't forget them. But yeah, I know. I mean, there's so many different uses that you have water for that, just drinking's. I mean, it's the most important one. You can go without showering for a while. You may not want to be around people, or they may not want to be around you.
You can do it though.
But you can do it. But yeah, so you got to be sure you can at least have some to drink. So let's say you've got some water stored up, and maybe you've got some rainwater collected or the 2-liter bottles, and you decide you want to drink it. So next step is taking precautions on how to consume this stuff without making yourself sick. There's tons of different things. Some of them I've tested, some of them I haven't. Boiling water, that's got to be the most basic. And you may be boiling the water to pour your dehydrated food in, or your freeze-dried food, excuse me. And that's going to, you're boiling it, that's going to take anything that's in there out of it automatically. Or not everything, but kill most of it. And then you just dump your food in there, you're ready to go. And the tabs, that's something I have some, but I've never actually tested them. You're supposed to put them in there, and it's supposed to treat the water in like a few hours or something. So, what do you have to add on boiling and purification tablets? I've never actually personally used the tablets. I've got some, just kind of a last ditch thing.
Maybe we need to test those out.
We probably do actually. So like I said, you always hear horror stories about everything. I think there's some weaknesses and stuff to those. It seems like it doesn't take some things out.
Yeah.
So if your water supply is kind of stagnant, I think it could be a problem.
Well, and I think that's why. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. That's why you need to go over a few of these different types of systems to have redundancies. So
Yeah.
if one doesn't take care of it, hopefully the other one will. But go ahead.
So I mean, that's something to be aware of. Boiling water, to kind of just retread just a little bit. A lot of cities, especially here, I mean, it wasn't but like a month or so ago that some town around here had a boil order.
Yeah.
And towns do that. Something goes wrong. Something like a small earthquake or something like that. Leak gets into the system. Something in the town gets put on a boil order. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. The boiling's important. It's probably kind of the most common, easiest. I personally, my go-to, not for taste, but I would look into something like bleach. You put like 2 drops of bleach into a gallon of water. Thought I wrote down there's a certain length of time you have to wait. It's just like a few minutes. And then you can drink it. I mean, it's going to taste a little like bleach, but, so does most city water anymore anyway.
Bleach or chlorine or something.
Right, yeah. But if you are going to use bleach, I was reading something the other day. You really should kind of rotate your bleach like every 6 months to a year because it loses potency.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was reading that. I don't remember where it was. I'll see if I can find it and put it on the Facebook page. But yeah, it was saying like you should basically rotate your bleach and stuff every 6 months to a year. I think it was a year. Because it'll lose a little bit of its potency. And now it would still be fine. Like you might put like 3 or 4 drops instead of 2.
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
But
it's dry.
it's something just kind of keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, it's just like food storage. You might be able to eat some of the canned goods. It's a little bit after date, but it's still something that you need to pay attention to.
right. Yep.
Moving on to filtration systems. There's so many different things, and I'll be honest, you are probably a lot more informed about these than me as far as the different types. But the go-to that I have is the life straws. I was couldn't remember the name for a minute, but I've actually tested those out in like rain puddles. And basically, you just have the straw and you just flip the top on it. It's got the built-in filter, and you can just drink out of any water. And it's tasted fine to me. I didn't have any problems with the taste or. I mean, it was the water was warm at the time, so it's not going to make it cold. It's not that nice. But, I didn't get sick. I just took a few drinks. I didn't get sick. I didn't think it tasted bad or anything like that. But I know there's some the bigger systems. If you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, just the like the life straw. I know we sell the home system. I think it's called like family or home or something like that.
That's the one I was talking about. I didn't remember the specs on it.
The limitations on the life straw itself, just the personal use one, is it doesn't filter out. You have to look at the store. I can't remember right off, and again, I thought I had it wrote down in my notes. Apparently, I did not. I believe it's the protozoa.
Yeah, that sounds right. And talking to you before about it.
Yeah, I believe it's the protozoa that it does not filter out. Now, that's not a big deal if you're getting water like rain puddles, like if you're hiking, camping, on the move, stuff like that. But if you're, like pond and kind of stagnant water and stuff like that, it kind of can become an issue. That's where the home system is so much better because it filters out all of that. It's like 99 point and then like 4 nines of your parasites and everything, protozoans, all of that bad stuff.
Well, and you also have to take into consideration why are you buying it?
Right.
You're not going to be buying a life straw, the personal use one. Even if you live by yourself in an apartment, say, you're probably not going to want to survive off a life straw. You might be able to, but you're not going to want to do that. It's more for something to throw in a bag, backpack, get home bag, bug out bag. Just leave it in your car trunk. That's where mine is. It's in there with my bottled water. So.
Yep.
But yeah, the family system like you're talking about, that's another alternative. Let's say, maybe you don't have much room, and maybe you do live in an apartment. and you have the choice of bottled water or this family filtration system. So that might be something you could buy, and one or the other type thing.
Yeah, and I know I'll try to get the video posted to the Facebook page. There's actually a video on a website where it shows the founder of LifeStraw drinking water out of one of the home systems that was literally scooped out of a puddle of manure.
Yeah, that's disgusting. I don't know that I want to watch it.
And, well, it's not fun to watch, but, that's kind of how, these things are kind of built. I mean, the whole LifeStraw company was designed out of, you got so many countries, especially Africa and stuff, that have basically all their water comes from muddy puddles.
Yep.
And so, those people have to have water too, so these were kind of designed for those people. And they also have other applications and stuff, which, they've marketed on and everything, and that's great. So, I mean, these things were made to, whenever stuff hits the fan or just emergency situations arise, you could literally, if you had to, go out in a pasture and scoop some water and filter it through here and drink it safely.
Well, and it's saying something, too, when the owner of the company is doing it.
Yeah, it's like the CEO or something. Like I said, I'll have to see if I can find it.
Yeah, it's a legitimate product when that's happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they've actually got, I'll have to see if we can get our hands on it. Last time I looked, it was just a brand new product through LifeStraw, and it's the community. I mean, the thing's like $300 or $400, I think, is what they were selling it for. See if we can get it for resale. But it's made for an entire community.
Do you remember the size of it right offhand?
It was actually pretty good size. I would say, I don't remember exactly, but I would put it in the neighborhood of probably like a box fan.
That's really not too bad, though, considering.
Yeah, if you made it all square, the big side is all square, probably 2 foot by 2 foot,
Mm-hmm.
and then probably stood about 2 foot or so. But I mean, this thing's made to do I want to say it was some ridiculous number, 75,000 gallons of water or something.
Yeah, I mean if you wanted to just get that, then never buy a single bottle of water, you'd be all right.
Yeah.
Hey, right offhand though, I do have a question, and I know I've asked you before, but I can't remember, so I'm sure other people are wondering. Is on the bigger filtration systems, is there a shelf life on those?
No. On the LifeStraw products, there are not.
Yeah. So realistically, again, if you're strapped for space in your living area, that might be the better option. Because I mean, let's think about it. What did you say, 2 by 2 by 2?
Yeah, it's something it'd be ish, somewhere around.
So if you put that in perspective, that's only a couple of cases of water.
Yeah.
So that might be an even better option for almost everyone, actually.
And like I said, it's a little, I don't know if we can get our hands on it to sell. If we can't, I go buy it somewhere else. If that's what, you think you need, by all means, go and God bless you.
Yeah. Just because we have it doesn't mean you don't need to go get it.
Exactly. Like I said, it was a little bit cost prohibitive just because I think it was $300 or $400.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I mean, in the long run, like I said, it was some ridiculous amount of water, 75,000 gallons or something.
Mm-hmm.
So in the long run, it's actually not too bad. I just know the one-time purchase, $300, it's something I can't do very often.
Have you actually ever I'll be honest, I know what we're talking about and I know what they do, but I haven't actually seen them in action. So do you just pour the water and then is there a spigot that drains out the bottom after it goes through the system?
Yeah. It's been a little bit since I've looked.
It's still something that's pretty easy to use though.
Oh yeah, it's not something that you need to have a degree from MIT to operate.
And see, that's one thing I have, one problem I have, and maybe you can either speak for yourself or agree. A lot of these filtration systems that are being advertised, especially towards the prepper end of it, they're way overpriced. It looks like you're putting together a car engine, and
right.
all these pieces you have to replace every so often. Whereas this, it sounds like you buy it and you're ready to go.
Right. Well, see, a lot of those gravity type filters use activated charcoal.
Yeah.
enough to actually filter. And if I remember right, that stuff's only good for like 5 years. And like you said, you're looking around like basically what amounts to about 3 or 4, 5-gallon buckets of stuff, and trying to set them up and attach them and all this and that. So
even the small pocket-sized ones, like I'm just not a fan of those because that's just that much more crap you got to carry and that much more time you got to take. Whereas you could just take the life straw, put it in something and drink it.
yeah, well, see, that's what I do. I get like the wide mouth bottles, like whatever the life straw fit in, and I throw that in like my get home bag. And that way, all I gotta do is just fill it up. I can throw the life straw in, and I can just sip out of the bottle while I'm doing whatever.
Yep, that's exactly what it's for.
So, the gravity filters, they have their place and stuff. But
all right, next, basically, is just hidden water sources around your house, living area, in your yard, whatever. The first thing that comes to mind, and a lot of people either don't think about it or don't want to think about it, is the reservoir in your toilet. From my understanding, that's about as clean, that's extremely clean water.
Yeah, it is.
And then the second thing that I can think of is actually two more things. Your swimming pool, any kind of swimming pool, whether it's a kiddie pool, big, in-ground pool, big above-ground pool, those cheap ones you buy at Walmart, put that to good use. That's a lot of water just sitting there if you need it. So make sure you always, if you do have one of those, to make sure it's always full. And hot water heater. I did read into this. It is a lot. There's a lot of things like precautionary you got to kind of take into consideration when trying to get water out of that. But in an emergency situation, you could do it. So. What do you have to add on those, or add some other things that I did not mention? I
don't really have a whole lot to add on that. The water heater's a good one. You got to be careful, like you said, if it's gas or electric or something. I mean, you got to make sure that in a power out situation, it works pretty well. But like you said, you've got to be careful because you drain those, especially if they're, the elements gets exposed without water. And they will pop. I actually have experienced that firsthand. It's not a good thing whenever it's like 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it at all.
No, I had to replace an element, and I accidentally plugged it back in, not thinking. I say accidentally. I plugged it in, but I wasn't thinking that I needed to wait for it to fill up, so I did. It blew out, and I had a little bit of a mess. So that's something you got to watch for. I know like your gas ones, your propane ones, all that. They have that pilot light and everything down there. So, I mean, you got to watch all that stuff. But it's a good source of water. And on the toilet, I mean, everybody thinks, oh, no, it's poo water. Well, in the bowl, yeah. In the reservoir in the back, all that is just water that's just come straight from the line. It's basically the same water that runs through your kitchen sink.
Yeah.
It just goes to a place that most people don't think of wanting to get their water from.
Yeah, and one more thing I'll add on that is ice cubes. Everybody that's got a refrigerator most likely has an ice maker that works, whether you're using it or not. So go ahead and flip that thing on, and if you don't like ice in your drinks or you don't use it, just flip it on and leave it, and that's just that much more water that's there. That's not costing you anything. You don't have to go to any kind of effort to, have some extra water. So that's pretty much it. I mean, the last thing we can just cover real quick is any additional reasons that we haven't mentioned on why you should store water, because there's still, even though we've explained all this stuff, there's still people out there that just don't understand. We've covered whether, if the pipes are frozen or if there's a drought of some sort and water's rationed, or let's say there's some kind of disaster where your city public water has to be boiled, or let's say, do you remember, what was it in Ohio where the algae, right?
Yeah.
Where
I don't know if it was Ohio, but yeah, they had that little weird algae bloom that was like really, really bad. It's making a bunch of people sick and all that.
And like if you boiled it, it just like multiplied or something, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what all they had to do, but I mean it was like serious there for a while, because I know I personally called all the filters that we sell, and I called everybody that I could get a hold of. I ended up having to make a call. I think it was Switzerland. And I finally got a hold of a lady for Life Straw. And if you're in one of those situations, we believe in our products, but I'm not going to lie to you about what they can do. They do not help in those situations. I talked to like 4 or 5 different companies trying to find something that would help in those. I could not find a single product that would actually help in those situations. You just have to treat the water as it comes to you.
And that's a situation where the bottled water or the jugs you've got in your freezer or refrigerator or 2 liters, that's where that would come in.
Yep.
And that's why we preach redundancy. Well, we could do a whole show on that.
Yep.
Redundancy on everything you're preparing. Have 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways to do things. One more thing, I totally forgot about this. You were going to explain the 2 liter where you put it in the sun. I don't remember that.
Oh, the SOTUS method is what it's called.
Yeah, we'll close out the show with that. So go ahead with that.
It's something that whenever I first heard about it, I thought I was reading one of those kind of satire sites, because it doesn't sound very intuitive to me. Maybe it does to you. I don't know. You're always told whenever you store stuff, you need to keep it in a cool, dark place.
Right.
And here was this article telling me that I needed to put a plastic bottle in the sun. For 6 hours to 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, this can't be right. You're always told you have to store it away and all that. But it's actually a real serious thing. You can go to the CDC. They have a part talking about it. You have to use clear plastic bottles. If you drink Mountain Dew, Sierra Mist, all those that have the green tint, those don't work. It has to be the clear ones. That's why I like the 2 liter bottles so much. You can do it with the smaller bottles. One site I read didn't recommend that you use the Powerade or the Gatorade bottles, but they said the 16, 20 ounce water bottles and stuff you buy at Walmart, in the cases and all that, that works great.
The plastic that's a little bit more flimsy.
Yeah, something I don't remember why.
That just seems like the track record that they're recommending, because the Powerade bottles are a lot thicker and sturdier.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. That was just one website. Take that for what it's worth. By all means, go do your own research on it. But you also have to use water with a very low turbidity, and what that just simply means is clear water. So if you go get water out of, say, your rain barrel or whatever, and it's kind of brownish, it's dirty, you're going to have to actually filter that somehow to get water clean enough that you can. The rule of thumb is if you can read a newspaper headline through the water, in the bottle, through the water, it's clear enough. So, there are some limitations to this. Simply all you do is you pour it in, say you take just a regular 2 liter bottle, you pour it into about an inch of the top to where the cap actually screws on. And then you set it on your roof. You can set it on the hood of a car. It needs to be direct sunlight. The hotter the day, the better, really. It'll actually go faster. It can do it within 6 hours on a good hot day. What I did personally, I set it up on a doghouse. I moved it into the middle of my yard where nothing would cast a shadow on it, and I left it there for 2 days, which is kind of it's the far end of the spectrum for time. I thought, hey, better to be safe than sorry. It's going to work in 6 hours. By God, it'll work in 48, and I stored a bunch of water that way. I've drank the water. I have not had any problems at all. To be clear, though, it does not purify the water. You're not actually getting rid of anything. What it does do is it makes it where the organisms and stuff cannot reproduce. It kind of renders them inactive, and that's what makes you sick. It's not that you get a bacteria or germ or whatever in your system. It's that it starts multiplying that causes problems.
So do you keep it stored in the 2 liter then, I assume, right?
Yes, yeah, you keep it stored in 2 liter. What I personally do, I've read some stuff that talks basically you can keep it stored indefinitely because there's nothing else being introduced to it. I personally don't know that I trust that. If you do, that's great. Like I said, do your own research on it. Every bottle that I treat this way, I throw into the freezer immediately after it's treated. My deep freeze is half full of nothing but frozen 2 liter bottles.
And your average person would think you're insane.
Oh, yeah, they would absolutely think I'm insane. But, at the same time, I've got water. And, I know you talked about earlier, you take that frozen water, your power goes out, your fridge goes out. I was in a situation with my mother-in-law, her fridge went out. If she would have told me in time, I could have taken those bottles of water, stuck them in a cooler, and we could have saved the food in the fridge. That keeps it nice and cold, You don't have to go buy ice. And if you're in an emergency situation where you need to drink ice, or drink water, that is, as soon as that melts, you can drink it. So as it melts down, you can just sit there and start drinking it.
I said we were going to close the show, but I'll ask your opinion on one more thing that kind of on preparedness websites you see differing opinions. What's your opinion on the shelf life of water?
I read a thing last night doing research for the show that said you should rotate every 6 months.
So do you think, let's say you've got a bottle of water, I'll just take a single bottle for example. Let's say you've had it for 3-4 years and it's still completely sealed. I still think there's value in that because of all the extra things we were talking about as far as you need water for your toilet, you need water for this and that, the little extra things, stuff you're maybe not going to consume, but it's still good. And if you are going to consume it on something that long, if you're going to boil it and use all these different methods we've talked about, is it really that bad, do you think?
Oh, I don't. No, I'm like you. I think that water, you can always boil it. You can treat it. You can drop bleach in it. I know my uncle was in World War II, and he talked about all the time they would scoop water out of places that, you don't even want to think about scooping water. And when they were, on the move and stuff, and all they would do is put a couple drops of bleach in it, and yeah, it would taste awful, but, it kept you alive. Like you said, if it's sealed and everything, I don't see a problem. Like I said, drop bleach in it. Heck, you could even probably throw it outside, use the Sodas method on it, whatever you want to do, and I think it'd be fine. I would treat it first. I wouldn't just take a swig of 12-year-old water.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't either. But that's one kind of, I guess, myth that I wanted to kind of not necessarily put to rest, but just kind of address that, because I'm sure a lot of people that listen to our show or listen to other shows kind of have similar questions. When I first started getting into this, I would look at different websites that I trusted and get different answers. So that's just the last thing I want to get your opinion on. So.
That's great. And I wanted to add real quick. Sorry, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not one that really likes trusting the government websites. It's not because I'm overly paranoid. It's just most times the government websites have their own reasons for all this and that. And they're a lot of times they're too overly cautious on stuff.
That's what I was going to say. You think they recommend the lowest amount, not necessarily purposely, but just because they're kind of guessing.
Well, and I think some of it's actually purposefully. Not that they're trying to be mean and hurt you or anything, but that it's just, okay, well, research has shown that on occasion, under special circumstances, something else could do this within 6 months. Therefore, all water outside of this circumstance should be rotated every 6 months.
I see, yeah.
And, it's how they do, I hate saying it like this, but the health departments and stuff, they're always like that with food handling and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to, have clean hands when you're cooking food. But you got to think about it. Nobody follows the health code laws making their food at home. I say nobody. Nobody I know of.
I don't know of anybody, no.
And how many people are getting just, deathly ill from all these horrible, horrible things that they say will happen if you don't do it specifically like they say.
Yeah, right.
And I think the water's the same way. Now, that being said, I think the website, the ready.gov, the CDC, and some of those actually has some pretty good information on them about kind of how to get prepared, just some basic general guidelines that if you're completely clueless, you think we're just completely full of crap, at least go and check those out. I know it's weird because you'll hear reports and stuff in the news, and I don't want to really get political and conspiracy theory but you'll hear reports where they're like, turn in preppers and, people who prepare and all this and that. They're weird, crazy people. And then, the next commercial on the radio is, I heard one today. It was, you never know when today is the day before or something like that.
Yeah. It's a great point.
So it's like, okay, well, which is it? But yeah, even the government tells you need to be prepared for at least 72 hours.
Yeah.
That's roughly, I would roughly plan on about 12 gallons of water. That's really not that much. but that'll give you more than you need, and if you need to stretch it, that's great. But I would go and check, at the very least, the CDC's website and ready.gov, because they have checklists and all that stuff there, and it's pretty good and easy stuff to use.
That's a great place to start. Then if you think we're full of crap, like you said, go check them out, get that checklist, and then as you're building that checklist, come back and keep listening to us, and maybe we'll add something that they don't have. So.
Yeah, and honestly, if we are nothing if not wanting to be honest.
Yeah.
And so if they say something completely, contrary to what we say, send us a message. Tell us. Be like, hey, because we're in this lifestyle too. We are trying to get ourselves and our families and our communities ready to handle any emergency. So if we're doing something wrong or saying something wrong that could possibly endanger somebody in an emergency situation, by all means, correct us so we can correct it and actually try to get that information out.
Right. And speaking of that, as we're closing the show out for real this time, check us out on Facebook. Where we need as much. What we just said is we're trying to build. Help your family, help your friends, help your community. As much as I hate Facebook for so many different reasons, there's no better way than to share information and share our information, share any ideas we have, you have, anybody, about just getting people in the know. Even if all you're doing is getting the idea in their head. Maybe they're not going to run out and get a bunch of water, but maybe they'll, take a second to actually think about it. So any kind of help we could get, spread the word on Facebook. We're also on Twitter, and hit us up with an email. Best place to find all this information is in our contact section on our website, everydaypreparedness.net. And spread the word, help us out, and if you got any questions, let us know. Brent, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to add, I know me and you have talked about this. We haven't said it on a show. We're actually looking at doing some specials thing, just trying to help get, the message out, kind of help promote us and everything. So pay attention to Facebook. Like I said, we're going to be doing some giveaways. We've got a couple new products that we're in, kind of the planning and stage on. So.
Some of them are they're all legitimate products, but some are fun. And
yeah, some of it's just for fun. Some of it's serious, but
yeah, right.
Like I said, we're going to be doing some giveaways and stuff on the Facebook page. We'll probably link that to the Twitter and stuff too. I don't know. We haven't fully planned everything out yet, but that is something we're planning on this year to try to help get the word out and everything. So be sure to like us on Facebook and, keep an eye on the page and add stuff and share stuff. If you find some information that's like, oh man, this is great, by all means, share it to the Facebook page. It's set so anybody can share anything. As long as we're not being spammed with stupid stuff, we're going to keep it that way. And if nothing else, you can email us.
And any kind, anything that would involve preparedness, whether it's the basics, the basics of the basics, all the way up to the crazy, conspiracy theorist stuff. We might not necessarily agree with it, but if that's what you feel like sharing, there might be a little bit of truth to it, whatever. But yeah, you can spam with a little bit of that, but don't spam me with like the latest, Katy Perry album that's coming out or something.
Yeah, that, and I don't need the free sneakers from Uzbekistan if I click your page 100 times or something.
Yeah, a Nigerian prince does not want to give me, half of the country. So. All right, with that, we'll close out. Thanks for listening, and we'll have, we're still focusing on the basic four core preparedness, and we'll get into one of those next time. I don't know what we'll do yet. Just kind of like last time, we didn't know we were doing water until today. So with that, tune in until next time. Check out the Facebook page. Check out Twitter. See ya.
Stay safe.